How is it that two people can look at the same exact thing, receive the same exact data, and yet come up with something completely different from each other? Well, the answer is that those two people have different worldviews. Your worldview is one of the most important things about you because it literally determines every decision that you will ever make. The problem is that most people don't even know that they have a worldview, yet alone know what a worldview is and why they have that worldview. So, what exactly is a worldview? Well, a worldview is simply the way in which you view the world. Mind-blowing, I know, right? But a little more specifically, the best way that I can describe a worldview is it's the story that you have inside of your brain in which you process all of the information and explain the entire universe. So this story is going to be made up of your beliefs and your experiences, and it is going to create a lens or maybe a filter in which you process all of the information that comes into your brain in order to make sense of it, right? It's trying to make one cohesive story out of all of your life. And that story must be able to answer all of life's biggest questions, right? So questions like origin, where did we come from? Meaning, why are we here? What's the purpose to your life? Morality, what determines right and wrong? And destiny, what happens to you after you die? Your worldview must be able to encompass all of those things. So every culture and every religion has their own unique worldviews in which we view the world, in which we take in and make sense of information. So as a Christian, I believe that the Christian worldview is the best and the only true worldview. So the Christian worldview can be summed up in 4 words: creation, fall, redemption, restoration. Now, I've already made a video explaining this, which is called The Story of the Bible, because the Bible basically gives the story of all of existence. Everything that we see is made up of time, space, and matter. And so there is a God who is eternal, meaning he exists outside of time, space, and matter, who created the universe. And he created us as humans special in his image. And he created us for the purpose of having a relationship with himself. But we rebelled against God when we sinned, and we fell from that right standing with God. And so that's why God had to bring us back and redeem us through the person and the works of Jesus Christ. And he is going to someday restore the entire universe when Jesus comes back. Right, so that is the story, that's the framework that the Bible lays out, that as Christians, we should be adapting and we should view the entire thing through. Now, there are 2 premises that this story, that the Christian worldview rests on. And those are that 1, there is a God, and 2, that God has revealed himself through the person of Jesus Christ and through the Bible. If those 2 things are false, then the Christian worldview is false. But I believe that if those 2 things are true, then the Christian worldview is true. And I also believe that the Christian worldview answers those questions that I just brought up better than any other worldview that is out there. So origin, where did the world come from? Well, God created it, and he created it for himself, which brings us to the second one, meaning. Why are we here? Well, we're here so we can have a relationship with God, so we can be with God. Morality, what determines right and wrong? Well, God does. If he's the creator of everything, then he determines what is right and what is wrong, not us. Destiny, what happens to us after we die? Well, the Bible makes it clear that those who have put their faith in the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ will spend eternity with him. Those who have rejected Jesus will spend eternity separated from God in a place that we call hell. Right? So that's the Christian worldview. Now let's compare and contrast that to the most popular worldview that is being pushed in our culture today. And that is an atheistic evolutionary worldview that believes in just materialism, that there's nothing beyond what you can see, feel, and touch and observe. Right? So what's the story that is being told by the atheist worldview? Well, nothing exploded into something, and then somehow we evolved to the point where we're at. Right? So how does that answer those questions? Right? It tries to answer the origin. However, there's a problem. Right? If you take what most scientists believe created the universe, what we call the Big Bang, well, what exploded and what caused that to explode? They don't actually have an answer. And then you have other issues like how do you go from inorganic life to organic life? There's no answer to that. Meaning, why are you here? Well, according to the atheistic worldview, you are simply the product of time and chance. You just happen to be here because that's the way that evolution worked. So ultimately, there is no meaning and your life has no purpose. Now, some of them will try to spin this and say that, well, there is no intrinsic purpose in your life, which means it's up to you to create your own. However, many, many, many people have tried this only to reach the end and realize that everything they did was ultimately meaningless. Morality. What determines right and wrong? Well, if humans are the pinnacle of evolution and there is no greater being than us, then that means right and wrong is determined by us, which means that truth in morality is not objective. There is no objective truth. It's only subjective, right? Basically, we get to determine what's right for ourselves. You've probably heard somebody use something along the lines of, well, that may be true for you, but that's not true for me. That's subjective truth and subjective morality. And it doesn't work because if I think it's right for me to take all of your stuff, who's going to stop me? Right? People will say, well, you can do whatever you want as long as it doesn't hurt somebody else. Says you, but maybe not me. How can you actually say that what Adolf Hitler did was wrong if truth is just determined by each individual? Because I'll bet you he believed that he was doing what was right? It does not hold up. If there is nothing outside of ourselves, there is no objective truth. The problem is that we all believe in objective truth. We all act as if we believed it anyway. We know that there are things that are intrinsically right and intrinsically wrong. But you can't have that unless you have something outside of us that determines what that is, which in my opinion is actually a very strong evidence for the existence of God, but we'll cover that in another video. Right, so where were we at? Destiny, right? What happens to you after you die? Nothing. You simply cease to exist, which means there is no reward for anything good that you do in this life, and there is no punishment for any evil that happens in this life. So again, the atheistic worldview cannot answer any one of those questions. And that is not a world in which I want to live in. That is not a world that I want to raise my kids in. That we're here by chance, life has no meaning, we all get to determine for ourselves what's right and wrong, and nothing happens after you die. That is a world devoid of any kind of hope. And again, I believe that the Christian worldview is the one true worldview. So as Christians, we need to be constantly evaluating everything that we take in, right? Where the Bible is the lens in which we interpret everything. So every time that we watch the news, every time that we have a conversation with somebody, every piece of information needs to be filtered through the biblical worldview to determine if this is true or not. But then we also need to be able to have enough critical thinking to realize, am I interpreting the Bible correctly? We need to constantly be in the Word of God and say, do I actually believe what the Bible teaches? Because if you think that you know everything, then you're never going to learn anything.